Hey everyone, I'm here with a very familiar voice, someone you get to hear every other week, Tod Bolsinger. Todd, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Marcus. Nice to be on with you again.
Again, for this time longer than a quick conversation, a little bit longer anyway. So let me give you a quick introduction, even though many people will already know who you are. But Todd is the executive director here at Fuller Seminary's Church Leadership Institute. He's also author of the Practicing Change series, as well as Canoeing the Mountains, which many of you have written, if not all of you. And today we're going to be talking about one of those books in the Practicing Change series titled Invest in Transformation, Quit Relying on Trust. So this is a great short little series. Todd, you described it to me early on as what if you wrote a kind of a little series with 4 books where you could read it on a single plane flight, and and
Yeah.
it's great because I actually read the first of these on a short plane flight, but halfway there and the other half on my way home on this flight.
hmm
So they're so easy and accessible. So I'm excited to talk about this one, Invest in Transformation. All right.
hmm
So here's my kind of opening question. You start the book with these words. You say, there is no transformation without trust, period. Eventually you say, quit relying on trust, but let's talk about why trust is important. Why is there no transformation without trust?
Yeah. So the way we define leadership, in all my books, in the Church
Yeah.
Leadership Institute, in all the work I do, is leadership is energizing a community of people toward their own transformation,
Yeah.
so they can accomplish a shared mission. So leadership to me is about transformation.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get to talk to anybody about transformation if they don't trust you. And we know this all the time, right? Every scandal, every time a
Yeah.
leader messes up or misses the mark on something,
Yeah.
trust goes down and transformation stops.
Yeah.
So you have to start with the reality that the first job of a leader is to become trustworthy, to be a person
Yeah.
of trustworthy character, trustworthy competence, relational congruence, all the things we talk about in all of
Yeah.
our books. Because if you, in the words of Canoeing the Mountains, no one's going to follow you off the map into
Mm.
uncharted territory if they don't first trust you on the map in the
Yeah.
things they expect you to do. So
Yeah.
trust is a prerequisite for
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah. Um, okay. And so you mentioned a couple of ways that we earn trust: technical competence and relational congruence. Can you unpack those a little bit?
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time with people early on saying, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to be trustworthy. I am. I don't
Mhm.
mess up. I keep my word. I keep my vows. I don't run with the scissors. I didn't run off with the secretary. I'm taking money. Like I'm a trustworthy person, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's true. We call that relational congruence.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, in all your relationships, you're the same person. You show
Yeah.
up in a way that people can count on you.
Yeah.
It's not only character, it's the way people experience your character. Because
Mm.
there are people of good character who, for one reason or another, we don't experience them as being the same. We
Mm.
wonder about them.
Mm.
And there's a relational element
Mm-hmm.
to trust that is needed. But there's another part, and it's called technical competence. And this
Yeah.
is related to our adaptive work, right? So
Yeah.
adaptive challenges are different than technical problems.
Yeah.
Technical problems are the problems experts can solve.
Yeah.
And so for pastors, since we're talking about the Church Leadership Institute, it means you have to really be competent at handling the scriptures
Yeah.
or handling people's souls. If they come to you and ask for help, or they ask you to pray with them, or they ask you to listen to them,
Yeah.
if they experience you as not being very competent, they're not going to trust you.
Yeah.
So I would say you got to be competent with scriptures and souls. You got to be competent with meetings, competent with money. You got to
Yeah.
be competent with the things entrusted to your care, as our
Yeah.
core mode
Yeah.
says. And when you have competence, you don't have to be an expert, and you don't have to be the best ever. You don't have to be the greatest preacher. But if you're trustworthy and competent, and you have relational congruence, then what happens is people will calm down and they will begin to listen to you when you begin to challenge them about transformation. But,
Mm.
but you actually have to have both of those things in place.
Yeah.
If you don't have those things in place, well, then you can't even keep going with transformation. You actually have to be, and we all know the stories. I don't have to spend much time on that, but there's whole podcasts and news stories and all kinds of stuff about leaders who were not competent or who were not congruent. They didn't have the character, and mega churches have gone down in less than a month over
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. So, so trust is required. You have to have trust for transformation to happen. However, the subtitle of the book is "Quit Relying on Trust," which implies that we do. It implies that we rely on trust. So maybe talk about why we rely on trust and why we should not rely on trust.
Yeah. So the reason for this is all four of these books. There's 4 books in the Practicing Change series. All 4 of them are the mistakes good leaders make when they're trying to lead change. So we found, I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and Canoeing the Mountains came out 10 years ago. And as soon as I started talking to people and training people in adaptive leadership, one of the things that became really apparent is there was a bunch of good leaders who were trying their very best, but they would struggle. And one thing they would struggle in is they would say, I'm trying to bring them deep transformation. Why? They tell me they trust me. Like, I've been with them a long time. How long do I got to be with them? Why are they not being transformed? And I said, trust is like having a big bank account.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a big bank account and you want to do a building project, you're going to have to invest that bank account in the building project. So one of the hard parts about adaptive leadership, genuinely transformative leadership, is actually trust goes down.
Yeah.
Because you're asking people to do something hard. You're asking them to navigate competing values. Yeah. You're asking them to face losses. Yeah. An adaptive challenge, as we talked about a lot on this show, is when somebody asks you, so Pastor, what are we going to do? And you have to say, I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
One of my students has this great line. She says, just because I don't know what to do doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I do know what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm leading an adaptive process.
Yeah.
But we don't have a clear map. We don't have a clear goal. We know we want transformation, but we're not sure how to get there. That's when we're in an adaptive space.
Yeah.
And it requires people to trust you and invest. You're investing their trust in that transformation. And the big mistake good leaders make is they think they can bring change without asking anybody without having to invest any of their bank account of trust. They just think that they can get away with, as long as people like me, as long as they trust me, as long as I've been a person of good character, well, of course, we'll be transformed.
Yeah.
And the answer is usually not. Usually not.
Fascinating. I thought it was interesting. You said you're going to lose some trust in the process of transformation. I don't remember if you said those words exactly, but I'm glad you said it, because I didn't quite pick up on that nuance that you're going to lose some trust.
Well, think of it. Your trust. If you think of it like a bank account, your trust account is going to go down. You're going to have to do withdrawals. Yeah. So this is why you don't squander trust. Don't do something dumb that squanders it. Yeah. And don't waste it. Don't waste your trust. Hey, trust me on this thing where literally you should just be transparent and tell the truth, right? Instead, you'll have to invest it and that's what this whole book is about: is how to invest trust in transformation. What is the process for doing that?
Okay, so let's talk about that. What is just maybe outline the process of investing our trust in the process of transformation?
Yeah. So this little book basically, this is the research we got out of 5 years now of doing stuff with the Church Leadership Institute. We worked with all these churches and all these groups going through transformation, wanting to change, knowing that they didn't have the old best practices. They needed to do adaptive change. They were going to have to face shifts of values and attitudes and behaviors. And this is actually the work that, because of this research, that now my consulting company does. I think some people know that I both am executive director of the Church Leadership Institute, but I'm also the founder and principal of AE Sloan Leadership. And our consulting company that works literally with groups all over the world, the same process. We use this with a global church, with a major university, with several denominations, several international nonprofits, tiny churches, all kinds. Yeah. It's the same process. The process of transformation reminds people that we haven't completed our adaptive change until we're changed.
Yeah.
It requires transformation.
Mm.
That transformation has basically 3 distinct steps.
Mm.
And that's why it starts with trust. The trust is, the first step is you help the congregation. I'm just going to talk about like church.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
congregation has to know itself.
Yeah.
And particularly, it has to know what we call its charism.
Yeah.
So you clarify your charism. And charism is really the way of saying, this is the unique way that our church shows up as a blessing to other people.
Yeah.
And it's built on our values and on our history, right?
Yeah.
So, you and I have pastored a number of different churches. You can have very faithful churches with really the same theology, the same goal. We want to win people to Jesus, but they're very different. Right? So there's a difference between, say, like the urban historical first church that I was trained in, and the beach congregation that I was a senior pastor at. They were different. Yeah. And that's a good thing. Yeah. Like being able to affirm every congregation is different.
Yeah.
Because it's a living organism with different DNA, different histories.
Right.
Slightly different values, like actual values. And that when those values that are like your family DNA, like, you and I are both fathers, we both have children. Your kid's DNA is different than my DNA, but we can look at us and say, those are 2 families.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And a lot of times say those are 2 good, happy families. And those are 2 dads really committed to raising good kids. And, my kids are adults and your kids are younger. And, but they're different. There's some things that are similar, like churches are similar. And there's some things that are different because there's a family resemblance.
Yeah.
And what we believe is that when a church gets really clear on its values, it can then articulate its charism. This is the unique gift.
Yeah.
This is what our church does really differently than other people. And this is why some people connect with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what we have. This is the way we are.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of this work with churches. They go from having very generic kind of statements of identity statements to real specific, like really, this is who we are. This is what we love about ourselves. And this becomes a gift. So it starts with this notion of clarifying your charism. And just to go back to you need trust to do that, because partly what you have to say to people is, we're not everybody's cup of sunshine. We're not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody's going to like us. Not everybody's like, we enjoy it and we're attracting other people like us, but not everybody's going to fit here. And that can be a little hard to say to a congregation, right? There's a reason why your daughter and your son-in-law want to go to a different church. They don't quite fit with the church you go to, right?
Yeah,
it's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay. Yeah. So, discerning our charism, which can be kind of hard. I mean, there's different people may have different ideas of what is our charism, and therefore may say, but we should do this and we should do that. So, can you give us some thought, some ideas as to how we can begin to discern what our charism is?
Yeah. This is great because you just stepped into my trap.
Oh, okay, good.
Every time we talk about charism, we talk about values. We talk about charism, we talk about values. Okay. And people assume values are our shoulds.
Okay.
So what's our values? We should do this. We should do that. And now we have an argument. I think we should be about this. I think we should be about that. I think we should be about evangelism. I think we should be about mission. I think we should be about justice. I think we should be about this.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with that. It actually starts with what we actually are.
Okay.
Like for every pastor, I say, remember, this church existed long before you were here.
Mm-hmm.
They go, well, what about a church plant? These people all come in here from different places. They have histories.
Yeah.
There's a different approach to a church plant than a traditional church. And then we have a slightly different method, but there's a way of getting to your actual values.
Yeah.
So mind if I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So the story I always tell when I talk about values, I tell the story about my grandfather.
Oh, yeah.
My grandfather's name is Guido Evangelisti. Guido and Mary Evangelisti were my grandparents. My grandfather was an Italian immigrant. He came through New York when he was 17 years old. He was fleeing conscription in World War I. He went through Ellis Island. I actually went to Ellis Island last year when I was in New York, saw his name.
Oh, really?
He made his way. Yeah, saw his signature, took my niece and my grandniece.
Wow.
And we actually saw there's my grandfather, their great grandfather, great great
Oh,
grandfather. There's this thing,
amazing.
right?
Yeah.
He made it all the way to California. He meets my grandmother. They have an Italian restaurant. I'm babysat at their restaurant when I'm 4 years old.
Wow.
Right? That's like the part of my family legacy. My grandfather had two values that were just pervasive. One value was he believed families stay together around food.
Yeah.
Meals are really important. So their supper, family style restaurant. Yeah, everybody gathers around the table. You go to my grandmother's house, you drive in the driveway, open the car door, could smell the raviolis from the car. They're already there on the table.
Yeah.
We go racing in to eat. She's like, "Stop, we got to say grace.
Yeah.
Blessed the Lord for these, I guess we show up and see for that God in Christ will amen." Like, say it as fast as we possibly could.
Wow.
I said I was 20 before I figured out that wasn't Latin. That was just English, really, really fast, right? And you eat family suppers. Families gather around food. My grandfather had another value that was really clear. We all knew education. Education's really important. My grandfather got mad at my grandmother because my grandmother snuck off and got a driver's license because women shouldn't drive. He was an old-fashioned patriarch.
Okay.
But he had two daughters get master's degrees, including my mother. And the first PhD in our family was not me. It was my cousin Lori. She was before I was. Okay, well, here's why I tell you those stories.
Yeah.
I tell you those stories because values are like that. My grandfather died when he was 60, before I was born.
Oh.
I never knew him.
Huh.
But values are like that.
Yeah.
They get passed down because that's who we are.
Yeah.
So to this day, if you show up at my house or one of my kids' houses or my nieces or my nephews, it's a pretty good chance they're cooking dinner.
Cool.
And they're having a family supper.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, my grandfather died when he was 60, and I'm 61, and my kids haven't been able to give me grandkids yet. So I don't eat the way my old grandfather ate. I have a lot more salmon at my Sunday dinners than he ever did.
Yeah.
Because I want to see grandkids, and I'm 61, and I don't want to die of heart disease.
Yeah.
Like that runs in my family. So really good values are like that. They can adapt. They shape you and they adapt you. Now, the reason I told you that, and I tell that story all the time, and I love to tell that story, is because the way you get your values is by telling stories.
Yeah.
I did this exercise last night with a church in New York City over Zoom. I asked them all to bring their favorite story of a hero in the church, like my grandfather's a hero to me, or of a time when you said, this is when I was most proud of our church. And we have this whole exercise that we run people through, and it's in the book, actually, of how you gather people to tell stories. And from your actual stories of the actual church, you get your actual values. Yeah. And from those values, you say, how these values show up for others is our charism. And again, why it costs trust is because people want aspirations. They want ideals. And you got to say to them, you're not everything's ideal.
Yeah.
You got to like we actually have to believe that God wants to use us as we actually are.
Yeah. What happens when, just in your experience working with churches, what happens when people start telling those stories? What do you see happen in the room?
It's so great. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
We literally had this experience. We've done this with like groups of 150 people, like 15 tables, 10 people around the table, all telling stories all night long. People start weeping.
Oh.
They pat their chest. They say stuff like, our church is not perfect. We're not perfect. We're not a long way from perfect. But this is why I love this place.
Yeah.
So last night, I'm doing this with a group in New York on Zoom, and they literally started talking about one of the women in the church. They went, "Oh, she was so tough. Oh my gosh. But man, she loved you. She was intentional about the way she loved you." And you know what? Later on in life, when she struggled, we were really intentional about loving her. And later on, after they told several stories about this one woman, there's this remarkable kind of slightly cantankerous, slightly quirky, lovable, and irritating woman, like everybody, like every church has, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, after you told her stories, we said, so what are the values in the stories? And when somebody said, This is a church where you do not have to be perfect. We embrace imperfections and we are intentional about love. And they said it like that, just as strong as that. Like, not like, oh, we're really friendly or we try. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. We really embrace imperfection and we are intentional about our love. Boom.
Wow.
Those are two really good values that are going to become important when we start talking about the second question, right? Yeah.
That's amazing. And you may not even remember this, but you consulted 11 or 12 years ago with the church I was at that time, and you kind of walked us through a process like that of telling stories and I don't remember exactly what the values were, but I remember they did have to do with food and sitting around tables, kind of like you were describing with your family and how important that is for fellowship. And but it is a pretty almost like a magical experience to hear those stories and be reminded. And there's nostalgia, which I know that our friend Mark
Roberts
talks about, and the life-giving part of that, which then leads to what's the next part of the process in transformation.
So once you get clear on our charism, and I always say to people, like, there's this old rabbinic tale that says when you get to heaven and God judges you, he's not going to ask you why you weren't Moses. He already had a Moses. He's going to ask you why you weren't you. And I think that's true for churches too. Get really clear. Like, we don't need you to be the church down the street or the church in the junior high or the church that is got busting at the seams. We need you to be you, right? Then you ask a different question that starts with really listening to our neighbors. The question you ask is, what is the pain point in our community that's calling for our charism? Like, where's the place in our community? And community is really defined differently by different organizations. I mean, we've worked with like universities where they've had to talk about the pain point that a university can meet, but that's always external. Like, it's a reminder. So we say the question is, how might the charism of our church address the pain point of our community as an expression of God's mission in the world? So what's the pain point calling for our charism? And what it really does is it says, there's a lot of needs out there and God loves the whole world. And that's why God has a big church. And what we need to pay attention to is what we can do. So, like, I think, Marcus, I've often talked about the church that you pastored out in that rural area where they sat down and said, there's a lot of needs, but the thing we can get good at, we're going to get good at, we care about food insecurity. We can do this. And like you've talked about the fact that they had a feeding program that was bigger than their church.
It still is. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Say more about it. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. I will. Yeah, for sure. It was, okay, I'll tell real briefly. I'll share the story of how it came about, because actually it kind of started before I was even the pastor there. I was the interim pastor for about 3.5 years, and I was guest preaching there for a little while, for about a year, on and off, roughly twice a month, because they were in need, and they were great. And anyway, I offered to meet with their session a few times just to toss ideas around with them, and I asked them one day, I said, you guys have a great campus. It's not big, but it's clean. It's good. You've got a kitchen. You've got some classroom space. And I said, what do you guys do besides church on Sunday mornings? And they kind of looked at each other and they said, nothing really. And so I just asked the question then, well, what else could you do? And so that got the wheels turning. And so they tried a few things. They tried like a health fair, and that was good. It wasn't but it was good. They tried a couple other things, and then they tried the food pantry, and it worked because of the relationships that they had. They knew that it was the pain point in their community, right? Food insecurity was the pain point. And so when they did that, and they loved their community, right? And it was like, oh, this is it. This is who we are. And thinking about their charism, part of their charism was food. Every Sunday after church, they had lunch, not just a fellowship time around, with donuts, but like a full-on potluck every single Sunday. And so that, I'm sure it was subconscious, But it just, that's, I think, part of the reason why this worked. And so it's been maybe almost 7 years now that they've been doing this every Thursday night. At least 100 families come through and get some groceries for the week,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah. And,
fantastic. Yeah.
and how many people are in their congregation, like on a typical Sunday
Oh,
morning?
well, probably like 20.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
this is, like you told me that story and we started talking about
Yeah.
this right when we were doing research on it. And so that's
Yeah.
part of what triggered my research on this. So I said, churches that are really being transformed, what they begin to do is stop thinking, oh, how can we grow? How can we get better? They start certain instead. Well, here's what we have. Like this just little church.
Yeah.
We really love having meals together. And oh my gosh, this is what is breaking our hearts, is how many people in this community don't have enough food.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whenever we do this exercise, it's so interesting. We will I've talked about this, 3 times this last weekend with three different groups. Whenever you do this exercise, we tell people to go out into the community and ask questions. I said, now don't have to get a clipboard and stand in front of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just ask anybody that you know who doesn't go to your church. It can be your son-in-law, somebody you work with, golf with, spend time with, whatever.
Yeah.
And just ask them questions like, what do you love about our community? And let them talk. Then say, okay, what makes it sometimes hard to be in this community? And let them talk. And then say, if good people all came together to make it good for everybody to live in this community, what could they do? And if you listen to enough people, pretty quickly you realize there's a lot of things that could be done. And every now and then you go, oh, that's ours to do. So I worked with this church in Austin, Texas. If you ever gone to Austin, people in Austin love living in Austin. So what do you love about Austin? We love Austin. It's weird, and it's got really great. It's in the hill country, and it's got all these businesses, and it's awesome, and we love it, right? Well, what's not so great about it? Traffic. Oh God, everybody's moving here because it's so great.
Yeah.
Well, the pastor wisely said, we're not going to do anything about traffic. That's not ours to do. We're not city planners. Well, what else was on the list? There's such economic inequality that it makes it hard to invest deeply in this community because you think that our kids are never going to be able to afford to be here. Okay, what could we do? So they said, we're a church that's always cared deeply about people who've struggled financially. We cared about the poor. We've had done mission things. We've done. So they actually did a thing where they literally bought medical debt for people in their community.
Wow.
There's services that will buy medical debt for pennies on the dollar. So imagine one day, a whole bunch of people in Austin, Texas got a letter that said, your medical debt is gone and it has been paid for by this church.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was amazing. It was great. As I asked the pastor, I said, so what happened? He said, we began to realize that our church loves doing stuff like this. And so they even created this thing they called the Love Letter Fund. They had this thing where they said, we believe that the church is supposed to be a love letter from God to the community. So anybody who wants to give an extra gift, or if we have extra money at the end of the year, we're going to put it in this fund and we're going to use it to just send love to people in our community with no strings attached.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Right.
That's amazing. And I'm curious, and it kind of leads maybe to the last thing that we can talk about is how do you get something that's new? They tried this thing of buying debt, or the church that I served, where they tried a few things and then tried a food pantry. But how does it go from being something that you try because it seems to fit who we are to something that, okay, and now this is what we do, right? Yeah. How does it become, to use a very negative word, institutionalized?
Yeah. So it's not institutionalized as much as it is embodied. It becomes part of. It really does become who we are. And so one of the churches that we worked with for some years is it's in the second most diverse zip code in America. Do you know where the second most diverse zip code in America is?
I don't.
Irving, Texas.
Not what
Irving, it's in Texas, right? You wouldn't guess, right? The number one zip code in America is Elmhurst, in Queens, New York. I know that because one of my students and one of my also been clients, they're there. Okay. Number two is one of our clients, a church in Irving, Texas. Wow. They said, our deepest value has always been a church that really cares about sharing the gospel with our neighbors. That we have always been. You ask people stories. We are missional. We care about our neighbors. We've cared about our neighbors forever. And what changed is our neighborhood changed as the area became more diverse. We started realizing that more people were moving into this neighborhood who didn't feel like they had a place of belonging.
Yeah.
So we needed to be transformed.
Yeah.
So one of the most powerful parts about this church, it is today one of the most diverse churches you'll ever see. Up front, in their services, in their sanctuary, in their fellowship halls, in their everywhere you go, they are a remarkably diverse congregation in this section of Texas. Which I have to just tell you, I wouldn't have surprised. It surprised me because I think of Texas as being like a lot of mega churches where people are pretty homogeneous, and that's what they had been. So today they're 2,000 members, and they are really diverse. And the pastor, who's a remarkable pastor, has only one problem. He preaches to 500 empty seats.
Oh.
Because they used to be 5,000 members.
Wow.
A whole bunch of people said, oh, if we're reaching those neighbors, then I don't want to be part of this church anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the transformation. That's what requires trust.
Yeah.
When you say we're going to live out our values for the sake of our neighbors, and it's going to require us to change, that's adaptive change. That's transformation.
Yeah.
And that is always going to be accompanied by loss.
Yeah.
And what's powerful is this church is growing again, and it's vibrant, and they're clear. They're like, look, we got a big old sanctuary because we used to have 5,000 members, and we had a time where people thought we'd have 10,000 members, and we don't care about numbers and that thing. We would like to be vibrant and growing. What we care about is that our neighbors find a sense of belonging.
Nice.
And so we're going to keep being transformed for belonging.
Yeah.
So we always tell people it is charism, clarify your charism, pay attention to the pain points of your neighbors, and then really deeply invest in your transformation.
Yeah.
What is the transformation so that we can live, so that our charism can address the pain points of the world? And that process is the adaptive process that we use with everybody. And it's in this little book that takes you less than it takes about 2 hours to read, and it's got lots of exercises and stuff. And it's actually, to be honest, it's like the cookbook for all the consulting work. I mean, we have major clients, and we do pretty complex work with them, but that's the recipe. That's the book.
Yeah. And I'll just, there is even more that we could talk about from that book, holding environments and maintaining mission group and transformation teams. And so I'll just direct people to that book. It's the green one. There are 4 colors anyway, and they're all fantastic. And we're talking about the green one today, which again is titled, let me get it, Invest in Transformation, Quit Relying on Trust. Let me just, closing question, for anyone who is kind of in that process of transformation, or knowing they need to engage in that process, what kind of encouragement maybe would you offer to them?
Well, my encouragement is going to be, people do resist transformation, don't we?
Yeah.
Like the famous line from about that are the folks who started adaptive leadership, Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky. Their famous line is, leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can absorb. Right? Yeah. What's disappointing? They wanted you to change your church so they wouldn't have to be transformed.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that when you showed up, what you were really doing is you were God's agenda to change their lives. And it started because you said, I want to be a leader, and you're going to let God's going to change my life. And when that begins to happen, that transformation, you'll get resistance, and you'll get people who will wish that you could just have a quick fix solution and that you can not have to change. But it really is deep transformation that is invigorating and beautiful, like your little church that you served, and these 2 churches I talked about in Texas and in other places. Like that, it's invigorating, but it truly is work.
Yeah. Well, Tod, thank you for this great conversation. Thanks for your leadership of the Church Leadership Institute. Do you want to say anything about Church Leadership Institute?
Yeah. So one of the parts about this is we're in the last. We are going to be spending over the next year. The Church Leadership Institute is going to be basically doing the last couple of big projects that we're going to be doing, and so we're going to be transferring some of our work to Fuller Seminary to take on some. So during 2026, we're going to be doing some transformation, some transition, and that's going to actually begin to transition our relationship with the spiritual life and leadership. You've been amazing to have. To be our partner in this, but we're going to basically, because we'll be reorganizing, we'll be doing a few more of these podcasts together, and then I'll still be listening to your podcast, and I'm going to come on. I'm going to come on anytime I have a book or anything else to talk about. But we'll be doing some transition that we're starting.
Yeah, and we'll say more about that over the next coming months and give some more information. But anyway, I love the work that CLI has been doing and will continue to do, and the work that you're doing with A. Sloan, and we'll read more of your books as they come.
Yeah.
So anyway,
indeed.
Tod, thank you, and thanks for everything. Yeah.